Hello all, good morning. So good morning everyone, good morning Gayatri, good Soumya, Myra, and only 3 people have joined so far. I was a bit late today in sharing the PDF document on the WhatsApp groups, but still I always expect you to join on time. Well, today's topic is the Fallacy of Feminism, a satiric epigram on the nation. Good morning, Madhav. Good morning, everyone. I'm still waiting for the people to join. Okay, so 7 people have joined now. I was talking about the topic, the fallacy of feminism, a satiric epigram on the nation. Now, there's something called a misconception or a misperception about certain concepts. Feminism is that one kind of thing which is really, debatable issue. Okay, the debate around feminism is very old, because after this revolution, this silent revolution emerged in Europe and started in Europe regarding this awareness about the women's rights. The question arose that how far and up to what extent the women are going to enjoy their exclusive rights. Are they going to enjoy their rights equivalent to men in the society? Are they going to challenge the patriarchal status quo they have been living in and living with? And are they going to do exactly what men have been doing for so long with them? Okay, is this feminism, something called feminism, is going to reverse everything? So that fallacy, what is fallacy? Fallacy is a mistaken belief, especially one based on unsound arguments. Okay, there is a notion that feminism is something which is very good for the society. Okay, and which is something which is a conundrum, which is not answered by reasoning and logic. It's a faulty reasoning. So fallacy is that kind of thing, a mistaken belief. Now the question is, my question is to you, okay, my question is to you is that how do you see feminism and how do you define feminism? How do you see feminism and how do you define feminism? Good morning, Chitralekha, Ankita, Lahari, everyone, a very warm good morning. My question to you is, how do you see feminism and how do you define feminism? Can anyone please ponder upon this? Gayatri says believing women should have equal rights. Okay, Gayatri. Anyone else? Any other answer? Madhav says gender equality. Yes, Gayatri says equal rights as men. Myra says feminism is equal opportunities and equal responsibilities. Okay, that is also, right. But these answers, the notions that you are explaining about feminism are exactly what the propounders, I guess, must have thought about it, that there should be equality in the society. There's no doubt about it. And no religious ideology or no ideology in this world degrades women to a second grade citizens or second grade individuals in the society. They are equal. Everyone believes it strongly that they are equal in the society and they are not supposed to be degraded. The original text of every religion talks about equality between men and women, every religion. But the question is that, have we been able to contain the true spirit of feminism today in our society? Have we been able to contain the true spirit, the true meaning of the feminism in our society? Or are we trying to over-dominate men and we are trying to, surpass even the rights of the men in establishing a feministic society? Now, Lahiri says feminism is equal opportunity given to both men and women. That's what Alamelu also says, equal opportunities. Chitralekha has an answer. Feminism is the most misused concept or term. I don't think equality and feminism are same. Feminism is today's context means using that as a term to overpower and justify anything women do. Exactly, that's what I was asking, and that's what I was pointing towards. See, and that's why I asked you this question: that have we been able to contain the true spirit of feminism in our society, the way it had existed in the earlier times, the way it had started in the earlier times? Have we been able to contain all those things? I mean, we have not been able to do that so far. We have not been able to do that because the question is that, because today we have so many laws, and feminism is something which is guiding the parliament to legislate certain laws which are not gender neutral, but perhaps they are like women centric, and these laws have a lot of scope for an utter misuse, and that's what has been happening since a very long time. You can take the example of Criminal Law Amendment Act 2013. The Criminal Law Amendment Act 2013 is a welcome initiative and it's a welcome legislation, but the question is that it has a lot of rotten eggs or rotten apples, in the sense that Criminal Law Amendment Act 2013 has created certain new offenses, something like stalking, voyeurism, sexual harassment, even sexual gestures or unwelcome behaviors or unwelcome statements that have been held to be offensive and to fall within the definition of sexual harassment. But the question is that there are certain things in evidence law also, that there are presumptions as to the rape of the woman, there are presumptions as to, these kinds of things, they are unnecessarily implicating men. And what about men? What about the rights of men? What about if there is no evidence that the man was actually stalking a girl and the girl has not filed a false complaint? We do not have proper criminal justice framework to deal with such kinds of problems or such kinds of misuse. Chitralekha says, example, Prevention of Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace Act. Yes. Myra says men are being over-dominated by pseudo-feminism. Man shouts on women, he's oppressive. Women shouts on man, it is okay. That's feminism today. That's right. That's right. Even if today in a marketplace, that's what I'm saying, even if today in a marketplace, suddenly if a woman starts shouting unnecessarily just in order to defame a particular boy or a man, then the whole crowd will gather around that particular man, and the crowd will start beating man. He will be taken to the nearest police station. The police is also going to look down upon him with disapprobation and look at him as an offender, and perhaps he's going to be put behind the bars. He'll be beaten up badly, and that's how the things takes place. We have developed this kind of mentality that women can never be wrong, and that's what Chitralekha and all Myra and everybody is saying, that feminism has come down to be taken as something which is trying to justify anything women do. Okay, why is it women, sir, aren't men harassed at workplace? Exactly. Men are also harassed. Men can also be raped. Men can also be stalked. And we have plenty of examples to prove that as well. Okay, so there's a fallacy of feminism, a satiric epigram on the nation. The kind of thing is that an introduction, the gradualism of feminism. A feminist is anyone who recognizes the equality and full humanity of women and men. See, article says, this article that we are reading today, it talks about one particular ideology, one particular, point of view. And this is not an endorsement of my views. My personal views and this article might be very different. So don't mix my personal views or your personal views with this article. We are going to discuss just one point of view regarding feminism that might be positive or maybe negative. And we are going to explore certain case laws, certain stances of the Supreme Court, how the Supreme Court has started looking at the facts of the cases. At the facts of the cases which involve sexual harassment, or the facts of the cases which involves, the term gender, recognition of the term gender. So that's how it goes. Over time, the interpretations of the concept of feminism have rapidly oscillated, and this has led to a poor reflection on the stand of people. In the process of attainment of the various whims and fancies of feminists, a blatant delusion has soared in the minds of people as to the essence of feminism. It is ironic how there is an absolute aberration from the purpose of feminism, which is the establishment of equity among genders. Okay. Over time, the interpretations of the concept of feminism have rapidly oscillated, and this has led to a poor reflection on the stand of the people. In the process of attainment of the various whims and fancies of feminists, a blatant delusion has soared in the minds of people as to the essence of feminism. It is ironic how there is an absolute aberration from the purpose of feminism, which is the establishment of equity among genders. Exactly this is what I started my lecture with. And I asked you, have we been able to contain the true spirit of feminism in our society? Have we been able to travel along the exactly true concept of feminism, since we have, it emerged as a revolution to talk about the equality between genders, but this has become so toxic these days that it, like, every sensible person might have developed a kind of hatred towards this something called feminism. And interpretations of feminism, or the concept of feminism, is like women can never be wrong, they can never lie, they can never be unjustified in doing any damn thing, they can do anything. That's how, we have in fact gone up to an extent where it is where we have started legislating laws that way. Retracing the history of India, a trilogy of phases is observed, all of which have contributed to the embodiment of the concept of feminism. The first phase, which lasted from 1850 to 1915, was instigated due to the rise of modernism and aimed at the denouncement of social evils such as sati. And it's not only about the conditions in Europe, it was around the world. There's no doubt about it that women were treated as degraded citizens. They were treated as mere sexual objects. Europe, which seems to be the most advanced region of the world today, was once living in dark ages. Do you remember those dark ages? I mean, do you remember the learning about dark ages in Europe, where church were used to rule, and there was a complete orthodox rule in the society, orthodox rule in the society. Women were not allowed to step out of their houses, even they were not allowed to peep out of their windows and ventilators. Okay, ventilations. They were not even allowed to peep out of their windows, or peep out of their doors. They were simply allowed to remain, they were simply, restricted to remain inside their house, and they were treated as mere sexual objects. That's what was actual Europe. But there was something called Renaissance. The Renaissance swiped the wave of Renaissance, sweep the entire entire region of European region, and it created a sort of awareness and scientific awakening and scientific outlook, which, when people came out and they started talking about equality. Similarly, if you look at the ancient society, ancient Indian society, what used to happen in India, even in India, women were rarely given any chance to come inside in the public. So women have been, and there was a lot of domestic violence in the earlier times also. Even today it exists, there's no doubt about it. But the question is that there is no doubt, we are not denying the text of the history. We are not denying the text of the history that feminism is not going to, that feminism is bad, or women were never subjected to utter cruelty and torture. No, that's not the case. They were. There was something called dowry, there was something called domestic violence, there was something called sati, there was something called child marriage, there was something called childhood pregnancies, there was something called female feticide. These are all crimes against women, rape, sexual harassments and everything. Okay, but the question is that in order to improve this, are we trying to create, and are we trying to establish the same notions against men as well? Okay, the first phase, which lasted from 1850 to 1915, was instigated due to the rise of modernism and aimed at the denouncement of social evils such as sati. In the second phase, which extended from 1915 to 1945, women stood up to issues confining to political participation. Organizations such as the National Federation of Indian Women were established. The participation of women in more civil disobedience movements made them more conscious of the significance of their equal stand in the society. The movement of feminism strengthened after independence and reflected evidently in the third phase, where issues in various power structures such as caste, class, and employment opportunities were resolved. The radical ideological changes were essentially kindled only after the election of Indira Gandhi as the first female Prime Minister of India in 1966. She continued in the post for 3.5 years until her assassination. This was a driving force for women in India to fight for their levitation and rights with the fortitude. Okay, see, that's how it goes. In the second phase, what happened, it started from 1915 to 1945. Women stood up to issues confining to political participation. Women stood up to issues confining to political participation. We see in the civil disobedience movement, 1930, the second civil disobedience movement. Women in 1934, which resumed in 1934, women came out on roads. They participated shoulder to shoulder with men. And Mahatma Gandhi said that women are the faces of this movement. So they started, we have heard about Annie Besant, we have read about Suchita Kriplani, we have heard about Sarojini Naidu. These are examples. There are many other examples like this, which extended from 1915 to 1945. Women stood up to issues confining to political participation. Organizations such as National Federation of Indian Women were established. The participation of women in more civil disobedience movements made them more conscious of the significance of their equal stand in society. The movement of feminism strengthened after independence and reflected evidently in the third phase, where issues in various power structures such as caste, class, and employment opportunities were resolved. The radical ideological changes were essentially kindled only after the election of Indira Gandhi as the first female Prime Minister of India in 1966. She continued in the post for 3.5 years until her assassination. This was a driving force for women in India to fight for their alleviation and rights with fortitude. Transformative constitutionalism, a metamorphosis. As new aspects are explored, there is a need to address the transformation in society. The gravity of transformation of the society is scrutinized. Lahiri has commented, the problem is the idea, definition, and practical application of any idea has always been hugely different, starting from the Marxist theory to the applicability of the Constitution of India to feminism. Exactly, very good. And that's what we are talking about. Feminism was never toxic, it was deliberately made toxic. You know, the emotional approaches understanding the feminism made them toxic. There was a lot of anger, and that anger has made it toxic. We are trying to vent anger against any men, any group of men. And as new aspects are explored, there is a need to address the transformation in society. The gravity of transformation of the society is scrutinized through the wide interpretations of the Constitution and its provisions. The concept of transformative constitutionalism, which largely constituted the South African jurisprudence, was popularized in India only after the case of Navtej Singh Johar versus Union of India, where Justice Chandrachud stated that our ability to survive as a free society will depend upon whether constitutional values can prevail over the impulses of time. Even though the abstraction of transformative constitutionalism cannot be construed, its evolutionism in India can be observed through a myriad of cases. Okay, Navtej Singh Johar versus Union of India is an example in India. Do you know about this case, Navtej Singh Johar versus Union of India? Okay, Navtej Singh Johar versus Union of India, in which section 377 of the IPC was decriminalized. Okay, it was not solely about decriminalization of section 377. These are not my views. This is what the Supreme Court said. I completely isolate myself on this point. Okay, I have a completely different point of view, and I am not sharing my personal thoughts on this issue right now. But I am just explaining you what the Supreme Court said. According to the Supreme Court, it was not just about decriminalization of section 377. It was about making the society, constitutionally viable, recognizing every gender and every kind of sexual orientation in the society, be it right or wrong, be it logical or illogical. But it has to be recognized. Freedom may be freedom may be very horrible, but the freedom has to exist. Even though the abstraction of transformative constitutionalism cannot be construed, its evolutionism in India can be observed through a myriad of cases. There is a transformative constitutionalism. Transformative constitutionalism means constitutionalism. The values of the Constitution, the principles of the Constitution need transformation. The basic nature, the basic structure will never change, but it's, the boundaries may alter from time to time. It's, there are many changes that can take place. There's this sort of transformation, and that's what the transformation is going on in India as well. Look at the case of Navtej Singh Johar versus Union of India. A string of cases was seen to adopt a feminist jurisprudential approach. To impede sexual harassment of working women, the court laid down certain exhaustive guidelines in Vishaka versus the state of Rajasthan, and it all only went uphill from that point. After the ruling of cases in favor of the surge of women in society related to different genre of societal and legal problems such as inheritance of property, marriage, child custody, the sale of acid attacks, guardianship and feticides, even personal laws were subjected to a feminist jurisprudential approach. You know, I said there was a lot of anger because of excessive torture and cruelty done on women in the past, and in order to vent that anger on anything, I mean, we have developed a feminist jurisprudential approach to look at anything and everything. A string of cases was seen to adopt a feminist jurisprudential approach to impede sexual harassment of working women. The court laid down certain exhaustive guidelines in Vishaka versus the state of Rajasthan. In 1997, after a woman in Rajasthan was brutally raped and murdered and she was burnt alive, this led to the case of Vishaka versus the state of Rajasthan. Vishaka versus the state of Rajasthan is one of the landmark judgments from the year 1997, where the Supreme Court gave guidelines about the sexual harassment at workplace. And it was in only 2013 when the government paid heed to the guidelines of Vishaka versus the state of Rajasthan. Okay, I mean, it covers all genres of social and legal problems like inheritance of property, marriage, child custody, the sale of acid and acid attacks, guardianship and feticide, and even personal laws were subjected to a feminist jurisprudential approach. Okay. However, in recent judgments such as the Sabrimala judgment, a flagrant divergence can be noticed with regard to the fundamental comprehension of feminism in itself. Okay. Do you remember the Sabrimala judgment? The Lord Ayyappa temple. Do you remember the Lord Ayyappa temple? Lord Ayyappa temple in the state of Kerala, Lord Ayyappa, who happened to be a virgin. Women from the age groups of 10 to 15 years who are menstruating women were not allowed to enter the temple and reach the sanctum sanctorum of the temple. But in Sabrimala, it was held that religious freedom cannot be gender biased. So in recent judgments such as the Sabrimala judgment, a flagrant divergence can be noticed with regard to the fundamental comprehension of feminism in itself through the popularization of movements like the Me Too. Do you remember the hashtag Me Too movement on social media? Hashtag Me Too movement, in which the accusations may or may not be authentic. Girls and women are coming out after 10 years, 15 years, implicating men that he did this way like me. I mean, how? You have no evidence. Why did not? I'm not saying they are wrong, but the question is about the authenticity. The judiciary is misusing the concept of feminist jurisprudence in itself to gain legal popularity. In the path of making women feel empowered and giving them autonomy, society is moving towards dichotomy, which is tyranny in disguise and prone to curtail attainment of gender justice. Okay? And is prone to curtail attainment of gender justice. The 21st century feminism, a Pandora's box. Earlier, there was an overshadowing of women by men in India, and now what is sought is the overshadowing of men by women. This pattern of repetition in the domination of one sex over another shows the need for a feeling of being in command. See, we are supposed to, why are we reading this? We are reading this because social ideologies, they guide what? Social ideologies, they guide legislations. Parliament enact laws, state enact laws as per the social needs. Okay. Feminism is one kind of an ideology which is a living ideology in our society, and which is guiding the state to legislate laws accordingly. Even the parliament in the last recent years, including the judiciary, these institutions, these democratic institutions, largest democratic institutions, the runners of the democracy, they have developed a feminist jurisprudential approach. Look at the laws made by the parliament. They're women-centric. They're not gender-neutral. Look at the judgments given by the Supreme Court. They are given with feminist approach. They're not gender-neutral. I mean, the biggest institutions of democracies have developed this feminist jurisprudence. Okay. Earlier, there was an overshadowing of women by men in India, and now what is sought is the overshadowing of men by women. This pattern of repetition in the domination of one sex over another shows the need for a feeling of being in command. First and foremost, a lacuna in Indian law needs to be addressed. In the IPC, rape is defined in an inadequate manner, with a narrow scope as something that only a man can do to a woman, and that a man can only be sodomized. Okay, why not women? Women also commit rape. You must have seen that film Aitaraz, starring Priyanka Chopra, Akshay Kumar and Kareena Kapoor. You must have seen that. That one film is exactly and properly attacks this feminist jurisprudential approach today. This toxic feminism, this notion, this thinking, this mentality that only men can commit rape. They can only be wrong. Women can never be wrong. Okay? Because we have made our laws like that. Any man who commits a rape on woman, any man who commits a sexual intercourse on a woman, why not a woman who commits a man? It should be any person. Laws should be gender neutral. However, according to a recent amendment, rape is now inclusive of oral sex and anal sex as well. Moreover, since Section 377 of the IPC has been partially decriminalized in Navtej case, men are more prone to rape. Hence, it can no longer be stated that women cannot rape men. Other crimes that provide relief only to women in India are stalking, sexual harassment, voyeurism, and outraging of modesty. The existence of discrimination in these sections violates constitutional provisions of Article 14 and 15. According to the maxim ubi jus ibi remedium, where there is a right, there is a remedy. Considering this aspect as the right to equality and equal protection under the law, and equal protection under the law is denied to men, a remedy must be provided for the same. Okay. Some usual reasons cited for not making these crimes gender neutral are that a woman lacks the power to rape a man and that it would worsen the state of women in the country as it encourages counter complaints. Cross FIRs hone lagengi. Do you still believe that women do not have physical powers to commit rape on men? Rape can be done in any manner. You always do not necessarily need physical power to commit rape. Isn't it? Ironically, the reasons are in itself massively discriminatory in nature as it leads to the portrayal of... Are you people getting my point? Ironically, the reasons are in itself massively discriminatory in nature as it leads to the portrayal of domination of men through victimization of women. Recently, a petition had been filed with the Criminal Justice Society of India based on landmark judgments such as Navtej Singh Johar versus Union of India, K.S. Puttaswamy versus Union of India, and National Legal Services Authority versus Union of India to make rape gender neutral, but it was dismissed by the Honorable Supreme Court, stating that actions are being taken for such an amendment. The point that is being neglected is that these actions must have started years ago. Okay, the point is that is being neglected is that these actions must have started years ago. Do you remember this case of National Legal Services Authority versus Union of India? National Legal Services Authority versus Union of India is one of the landmark judgments from the year 2014 of the Supreme Court, recognizing the third gender. Even though any person under 18 years of age is protected against sexual offences under the law, an adult male victim is provided with no remedy and the perpetrator is not punished for the offence. And the perpetrator is not punished for the offence. The definition of rape and other crimes being patriarchal in nature ignorantly oversees that a crime cannot be subject to extremes like sexual orientation, gender or caste. While it seems like women are being protected, feminism is moving towards an establishment of domination in the process of feeling empowered. Every human being is subject to such monstrosities and must have protection under the law for the same, and that is how gender justice can be truly achieved. Lahiri has commented, ironically, in a patriarchy like India, men themselves do not believe that women are capable of committing rape and thus is considered as a very underrated problem. Exactly. We are underrating this problem. We are underestimating this problem. This is a very huge problem. The definition of rape and other crimes being patriarchal in nature ignorantly oversees that a crime cannot be subject to extremes like sexual orientation, gender or caste. While it seems like women are being protected, feminism is moving towards an establishment of domination in the process of feeling empowered. Every human being is subject to such monstrosities and must have protection under the law for the same, and that is how gender justice can be truly achieved. Conclusion. The spaghettification of feminism. There needs to be a dogmatic change, a tremendous change. Okay. Okay. There needs to be a dogmatic change regarding feminism for it to actually be effective in society. Political parties are drifting away from ideological politics and succumbing to vote bank politics merely for obtaining votes from the ardent supporters of the conception of feminism. For instance, the recent Congress manifesto provided for reservation of 33% of seats for women in Lok Sabha and state legislative assemblies, along with equal remuneration and prevention of sexual harassment in workplaces. There is a paradox here, as in the name of eradication of discrimination, there is an unintended promotion of discrimination by sectionalizing women merely to obtain more votes. The Rawlsian theory supports the extension of justice to the weaker sections of society in order to raise them to the elevation with the others and establish a sense of parity. Contrary to the ancient times, women have actually reached a point where they can stand up for themselves and are treated with dignity in society. At this point, it is an aberration. Aberration means to go astray, to deviate from the right path. It is an aberration to consider women as a weaker section of the society. We can no longer consider women as a weaker section of the society, because weaker section includes any vulnerable person or any vulnerable group. It may be SC, OBC, men, women, it may be anyone. We can't really single out women as the most weak individuals, isn't it? It is an aberration to consider women as a weaker section of the society, and if they are, that would be a way of discrimination in itself. Even though women are physiologically and mentally different from men and are vested with some special privileges under Article 15(3) of the Constitution, feminists must not intrude into personal laws and try to gain ascendancy and seem superior before the law. Analogous to spaghettification, a process through which a person or a thing would be stretched indefinitely and torn apart by gravitational forces on falling into a black hole, the concept of feminism too has been inflated way beyond its purview. Eventually, the soul of feminism, which is the establishment of gender equity, will be defeated. Before such an extremity, there needs to be a precise comprehension of the notion instead of dwelling on the perceptions of feminist and pseudo-feminist, both of whom have placed their faith in vastly different things. As Lady Justice stands firm, society needs to observe the significance of her blindfold and realize that there can be no prejudice in the process of rendering justice. Okay, so this is about today's discussion. If you have any question, anything to add, you're most welcome to do that. Myra has no questions. Any other? What about others? Okay, Gayatri. Okay. Okay, then thank you. I am signing off and let's meet the day after tomorrow. I'll be on leave tomorrow. Okay? Let's meet the day after tomorrow. I'll be on leave tomorrow. Okay, then thank you. I am signing off and let's meet the day after tomorrow. I'll be on leave tomorrow. Okay? Let's meet the day after tomorrow. I'll be on leave tomorrow. Okay, thank you. Bye bye.